Some of the most entertaining movies ever made have stressful scenes where the heroes are trying to advance to their missions, come across an item or two that is supposedly untouchable because it's cursed. Think Indiana Jones or Mission Impossible. The funny thing is, there are some things in life that are just as untouchable for us real humans they can be for some of Hollywood's biggest made-up characters. Find out what we're talking about as we go over 10 cursed objects you should never touch. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to The Supreme, and click the notification bell for more lit content. Let's get rolling. The Maori Warrior Mask. We'll kick things off today with a very detailed, very ancient, and very scary looking mask called the Maori Warrior Mask. This, of course, is the mask on the left. The mask was part of an ancient tribe over in New Zealand who would carve and wear masks like this one when it was time for battle. Legend says that when the warrior wearing the mask passed away, then his spirit would live in the mask forever. Fast forward to today, and this particular mask sits in the Te Papa in Wellington, which is a national museum for New Zealand. To this day, there is a sign nearby suggesting that if a woman is pregnant or suspects that she may be, she should not come near the mask at all. For whatever reason, women carrying babies are stricken with unknown pregnancy issues after coming into contact with the mask. A mysterious event indeed, but one that also clearly isn't worth the risk. The mask on the right, however, doesn't come with as much written history. For all intents and purposes, honestly, it just looks like a knockoff version of the Maori Warrior Mask, but some suspect that there's a lot more to it than that. If you've seen this before, or if you have any idea what it's all about, then chime in down below in the comments. The Cursed Wedding Dress. While adventurous movies are certainly a great way to spend an afternoon, most women, and some guys, look forward to what they consider to be the most important day on earth, which of course is their wedding day. Anna Baker was the daughter of a very wealthy man back in the late 1800s. Their family was well off, however, Anna had fallen in love with a lower-class iron worker. They planned to marry, but Anna's father stopped the wedding, citing that he didn't want his well-off daughter marrying a peasant. The iron worker wanted to marry her so much that he purchased a wedding dress, but that just served to anger her father even more. From that day forward, she refused to marry anyone, even though she was presented with all types of suitors. Eventually, her father passed away, but by then it was too late for her to marry anyone. Arts claim to see Anna dancing in the dress every so often, alone, under the pale light of a full moon. Years after Anna herself finally passed, their home was turned into a museum, and in Anna's room, her wedding dress was encased behind glass. Visitors of the museum over the years have claimed to see a woman behind the glass as well. Others have said that they've seen the dress itself sway from side to side while they're looking at it, leading many to believe that Anna is still holding on to that wedding dress even throughout her very own afterlife. The Baker Mansion accepts visitors to this day and can be found in Blair County, Pennsylvania, in the United States. Busby's Chair. Not many funnier names out there than this next one, Busby. I don't know why, but Busby sounds funny to me. Anyway, Thomas Busby may have had a funny last name, but he was certainly nothing to joke around with. The convicted murderer and suspected serial killer had a favorite chair that he loved so much that he even strangled his own father-in-law for accidentally sitting down in it. Before Busby was executed for his crimes in 1702, just after finishing his final meal, which he also ate in his favorite chair, he stood up and placed a curse on the wooden piece of furniture, stating that any person who would ever sit in it after he perished would meet an instant death. And according to records, 63 people who have sat in the chair after his curse have died soon after, some within just minutes. The chair now sits suspended in the air so no one could ever sit in it again, and can be seen at the Museum in North Yorkshire. Dybbuk box. Our next cursed object is still making people feel its negative effects even today, and it's even making the superstars feel its wrath as well. A Dybbuk, according to Jewish mythology, is an evil spirit that is absolutely relentless. There are reports of a Dybbuk being summoned by a Holocaust survivor and his homemade Ouija board, which was then quickly captured and trapped inside of a wine cabinet. Kevin Mannis bought the box in 2001 and, according to the legend, was immediately affected. Instantly, Mannis and whoever else was in his house began experiencing extremely vivid yet horrifying nightmares. He then gave the box to his mother, who had a stroke the day she put it in her own house. The box eventually found its way to Jason Haxton, who at the time was the director of the Museum of Osteopathic Medicine, who then not only got the same kinds of nightmares, but also incurred a serious skin condition that made him cough up blood. This box has been listed as the inspiration for the movie The Possession and even has caused superstar Post Malone some issues in the past as well. Fetid face. Let's get back to cursed masks for just a little bit. This next one can be seen at the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult. The mask arrived as an anonymous donation, accompanied with a note that simply read, "I'm sorry." Museum owners cleaned up the mask, which was filthy upon arrival, and then one of them put it on, which was a big mistake. After just moments, he claims that he felt like his spirit was leaving his body, and he experienced extreme bouts of nausea. Everyone else who put it on after that day experienced strange and powerful emotions of anger and jealousy. Now, the mask is locked up, though still on display, with hopes that no one will ever wear it again. Cursed mirror. One of the most cursed places in all the world can be found right here in the United States, at Myrtle's Plantation in Louisiana. In the house that isn't even a part of some of New Orleans' most popular tours, in fear that the area here is truly cursed, there's a mirror that some claim is one of the most haunted objects in human history. The plantation sits about 80 miles away from New Orleans. There's a mirror inside of it that locals claim houses the spirits of Sarah Woodruff and her 2 children. The story goes that the trio was poisoned by a former slave named Cleo, and that all of Woodruff's spirits are trapped inside of the haunted mirror to this very day. Annabelle. Why the Dybbuk box inspired one horror movie, the original Annabelle doll inspired another. Back in 1970, a mother purchased the doll from an antique store for her daughter. It didn't take long for the family to understand that there was something strange going on with this particular doll. Things got so bad that the family obtained help from Ed and Lorraine Warren, a couple who's famous for being psychic investigators. After just a few hours, the Warrens were able to determine that the doll in fact was haunted and possessed the spirit of a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins. The doll now famously rests in the Occult Museum, which can be found in Connecticut, and of course inspired 3 horror films in the Annabelle franchise. Screaming skull. Life often imitates art, as proven again with this next story about the screaming skull. In the Burton Agnes Hall, which can be found in Buren Agnes, England, there's a super creepy paranormal object called the screaming skull. As one would likely imagine, the screaming skull is supposedly of a skull that screams. The story here goes that a young lady named Catherine Ann Griffith was attacked by bullies all the way back in 1620. She died in her house from the injuries. Every night since then, according to legend, a ghost can be seen roaming the premises, close to her skull. If a person was to approach the skull or even get near it, the ghost would start letting out strange and frightening noises in an effort to scare off anyone who would attempt to remove it. In 1958, a black and white independent movie called The Screaming Skull hit the big screens, although in that story, a newlywed woman believes she was being haunted by the ghost of her husband's previous wife. The painting of the crying boy. In the 1950s, there was an Italian artist named Giovanni Bragolin. He became famous for this painting of a crying little boy. Now, why so many people wanted to hang a picture of a crying boy in their home is beyond me, but then something happened. Over the next several decades, a very strange phenomenon occurred. In 1985, according to an article by The Sun, a fireman claimed to have found prints of this painting of the little boy in several different houses that were burned down because of house fires. The only problem was that the pictures weren't harmed in any way, and firefighters across the area grew so superstitious that they wouldn't even allow prints of the paintings in their own homes. The strange events continued on even after the article was published. Then, in a weird turn, it was announced that the little boy that the portraits are of is an orphan whose family's home was, yep, you guessed it, burned down in a house fire. James Dean's car. From masks to mirrors to paintings to a car. Our final clip of the day is about the famous James Dean, an American actor who lived in the mid-20th century. It's important to note that the vehicle today is nowhere to be found, so you can't actually ever touch it, and that's probably for good reason. But why would someone want to get rid of it, you might ask? Well, in 1955, Dean crashed his car on California State Route 46 and passed away. But it's what happened after that that makes the vehicle cursed. Mechanics who tried to repair the vehicle were also affected. The car fell on top of one of them, crushing his legs completely. The car was eventually resold, and the new owner sold parts of it for cash. Two of the recipients of those parts were also severely injured. One of them actually died when he ran right into a tree. The other one was hurt when the car locked up and rolled over. That's not even the end of it. A couple of thieves tried to steal pieces of the car, and they were both hurt pretty bad. Then the vehicle eventually was donated to two different exhibits. The first one literally caught on fire after the acceptance of the car, and the second one fell on top of a student, breaking his hip. As if that's not enough, a truck driver who was attempting to transport the vehicle was crushed when the car fell on top of him. Sheesh, that's a lot. That was 10 cursed objects you should never touch. Which one of these on today's list was your favorite? If you could, in fact, see one of these face to face and have no bad omens, which one would you choose?